Hello, everybody. We are on Chapter 11, Part 2, starting at page 100. We'll start from the top of the page. Yeah, they attract monsters, Meg agreed. I haven't used the phone in forever. A wise move, Sharon said, but recently our phones have stopped working altogether. Mobile, landline, internet, it doesn't seem to matter. Even the archaic form of communication known as email is strangely unreliable. The messages simply don't arrive. Did you look in the junk folder I offered? I fear the problem is more complicated, Chiron said. I have no communication with the outside world. We are alone and understaffed. You are the first newcomers in almost 2 months. I frowned. Percy Jackson mentioned nothing of this. I doubt Percy is even aware, Chiron said. He's been busy with school. Winter is normally our quietest time. For a while I was able to convince myself that communication failure was nothing but an inconvenient happenstance. Then the disappearances started. In the fireplace, a log slipped from the andiron, and I may or may not have jumped in my seat. The disappearances, yes. I wiped drops of tea from my pants and tried to ignore Meg's snickering. Tell me about those. 3 in the last month, Chiron said. First it was Cecil Markowitz from the Hermes cabin. One morning his bunk was simply empty. He didn't say anything about wanting to leave. No one saw him go, and in the past few weeks no one has seen or heard from him. Children of Hermes do tend to sneak around, I offered. At first, that's what I thought, said Chiron. But a week later, Ellis Wakefield disappeared from the Ayers cabin. Same story, empty bunk, no signs that he had left on his own or was taken. Ellis was an impetuous young man. It was conceivable that he might have charged off on some ill-advised adventure, but it made me uneasy. Then this morning we realized a third camper had vanished. Miranda Gardner, head of the Demeter cabin. That was the worst news of all. Meg swung her feet off the armrest. Why is that the worst? Miranda is one of our senior counselors, Chiron said. She would never leave on her own without notice. She is too smart to be tricked away from camp and too powerful to be forced. Yet something happened to her, something I can't explain. The old centaur faced me. Something is very wrong, Apollo. These problems may not be as alarming as the rise of Kronos or the awakening of Gaia. But in a way, I find them even more unsettling, because I have never seen anything like this before. I recall my dream of the burning sun bus. I thought of the voices I'd heard in the woods, urging me to wander off and find their source. These demigods, I said, before they disappeared, did they act unusual in any way? Did they report hearing things? Chiron raised an eyebrow. Not that I'm aware of. Why? I was reluctant to say more. I didn't want to cause a panic without knowing what we were facing. When mortals panic, it can be an ugly scene, especially if they expect me to fix the problem. We're at the top of page 102. Also, I will admit, I felt a bit impatient. We had not yet addressed the most important issues. Mine. It seems to me, I said, that our first priority is to bend all the camp's resources to helping me regain my divine state. Then I can assist you with these other problems. Chiron stroked his beard. What if the problems are connected, my friend? What if the only way to restore you to Olympus is by reclaiming the Oracle of Delphi, thus freeing the power of prophecy? What if Delphi is key to it all? I had forgotten about Chiron's tendency to lay out obvious and logical conclusions that I tried to avoid thinking about. It was an infuriating habit. In my present state, that's impossible, I pointed at Meg. Right now, my job is to serve this demigod, probably for a year. After I've done whatever task she assigns me, Zeus will judge that my sentence has been served, and I can once again become a god. Meg pulled apart a fig Newton. I could order you to go to this Delphi place. No, my voice cracked in mid shriek. You should assign me easy tasks, like starting a rock band, or just hanging out. Yes, hanging out is good. Meg looked unconvinced. Hanging out isn't a task. It is if you do it. If you do it right, Camp Half-Blood can protect me while I hang out. After my year of servitude is up, I'll be a god. Then we can talk about how to restore Delphi. Preferably, I thought, by ordering some demigods to undertake the quest for me. Apollo, Chiron said, if demigods keep disappearing, we may not have a year. We may not have the strength to protect you. And forgive me, but Delphi is your responsibility. I tossed up my hands. I wasn't the one who opened the doors of death and let Python out. Blame Gaia. Blame Zeus for his bad judgment. When the giants started to wake, I drew up a very clear 20-point plan of action to protect Apollo and also you other gods. But he didn't even read it. Meg tossed half of her cookie at Seymour's head. Ooh, excuse me. I still think it's your fault. Hey, look, he's awake. She said this as if the leopard had decided to wake up on his own rather than being beamed in the eye with a fig Newton. Rah! Seymour complained. Chiron wheeled his chair back from the table. My dear, in that jar on the mantel, you'll find some sausages. Why don't you feed him dinner? Apollo and I will wait on the porch. We left Meg happily making 3-point shots into Seymour's mouth with the treats. Once Chiron and I reached the porch, he turned to his wheelchair to face me. She's an interesting demigod. Interesting is such a non-judgmental term. She really summoned Akapos. Well, the spirit appeared when she was in trouble. Whether she consciously summoned it, I don't know. She named him Peaches. Top of page 104. Chiron scratched his beard. I have not seen a demigod with the power to summon grain spirits in a very long time. You know what it means? My feet began to quake. I have my suspicions. I'm trying to stay positive. She guided you out of the woods, Chiron noted. Without her? Yes, I said. Don't remind me. It occurred to me that I'd seen that keen look in Chiron's eyes before, when he'd assessed Achilles' sword technique and Ajax's skill with a spear. It was the look of a seasoned coach scouting new talent. I'd never dreamed that the centaur would look at me that way, as if I had something to prove to him, as if my mettle were untested. I felt so objectified. Tell me, Chiron said, what did you hear in the woods? I silently cursed my big mouth. I should not have asked whether the missing demigods had heard anything strange. I decided it was fruitless to hold back now. Chiron was more perceptive than your average horseman. I told him what I experienced in the forest and after in my dreams. His hands curled into his lap blanket. The bottom of it rose higher above his red sequined pumps. He looked about as worried as it is possible for a man to look while wearing fishnet stockings. We will have to warn the campus to stay away from the forest, he decided. I do not understand what is happening, but I still maintain it must be connected to Delphi. Top of page 105. In your present situation, the Oracle must be liberated from the monster of Python. We must find a way. I translated that easily enough. I must find a way. Chiron must have read my desolate expression. Come, old friend, he said. You have done it before. Perhaps you are not a god now, but the first time you killed Python, It was no challenge at all. Hundreds of storybooks have praised the way you easily slew the enemy. Yes, I muttered, hundreds of storybooks. I recalled some of those stories. I had killed Python without breaking a sweat. I flew to the mouth of the cave, called him out, unleashed an arrow, and boom, one dead giant snake monster. I became Lord of Delphi, and we all lived happily ever after. How did storytellers get the idea that I vanquished Python so quickly? All right, possibly it's because I told them so. Still, the truth was rather different. For centuries after our battle, I had bad dreams about my old foe. Now, I was almost grateful for my imperfect memory. I could not recollect all the nightmarish details of my fight with Python, but I did know he had been no pushover. I had needed all my godly strength, my divine powers, and the world's most deadly bow. What chance would I have as a 16-year-old mortal with acne, hand-me-down clothes, and the nom de guerre Lester Papadopoulos? I was not going to charge off to Greece and get myself killed, thank you very much. Especially not without my sun chariot or the ability to teleport. I'm sorry, gods do not fly commercial. I tried to figure out how to explain this to Chiron in a calm, diplomatic way that did not involve stomping my feet or screaming. I was saved from the effort by the sound of a conch horn in the distance. That means dinner, the centaur forced a smile. We will talk more later, eh? For now, let's celebrate your arrival. The end of chapter 11. Have a good night, everybody.